Living in my neighborhood was like living inside a picture-perfect postcard rows of neatly trimmed lawns. Pastel-colored houses that all looked like they'd been copied from the same blueprint. And an HOA that acted more like a shadow government than a neighborhood committee. They had rules for everything. The shade of curtains visible from the street. The length of your grass, even how long your garbage bin could sit outside. My personal crime against the community? Parking my RV in my own driveway. Now, to be fair, my RV wasn't some rusted old clunker. It was sleek, spotless, and practically gleamed under the sun. But to the HOA, it was an eyesore that didn't align with community standards. Every month, I'd get another warning slipped under my door. Remove the vehicle within 48 hours. Final notice before fines. Community appearance violation. They made it sound like my RV was lowering property values just by existing. Still, I ignored them. The RV was my escape, my way to get out of this Stepford neighborhood whenever I needed a breath of freedom. But ignoring the HOA was like poking a hornet's nest. You never knew when they'd swarm. And one night, they did. I came home late from work, parked my car, and immediately noticed something wrong. The driveway was empty. My RV, my pride and joy was gone. At first, I thought maybe it had been stolen. My heart dropped. Then, as if on cue, a white SUV with a magnetic HOA patrol decal rolled up. Out stepped two of the most self-important volunteers you could imagine, reflective vests strapped over their palas like they were traffic cops. "Don't worry," one of them said, holding a clipboard. "Your vehicle has been relocated." It was in violation. Relocated? I repeated, trying not to lose it. "That's my property. You can't just tow it." The other one smirked. "Actually, under Community Bylaws Section 8B, we can. Consider it impounded until you settle your fines." Something about the way he said it didn't sit right. Impounded where? The nearest tow lot was closed this late. But before I could press further, they hopped back into their SUV and drove off, leaving me staring at an empty driveway and a creeping sense that this wasn't just about fines anymore. That night, instead of sleeping, I sat by my window, waiting. Because deep down I knew my RV hadn't been towed at all. Someone was out there, driving it. And whatever the HOA thought they were doing, they had no idea what they'd just gotten themselves into. The next morning, I expected to find paperwork from a tow company or at least some official notice from the HOA explaining where they'd taken my RV. Instead, my mailbox was empty. No ticket, no receipt, nothing. It was as if the RV had simply vanished into thin air. I started making calls to local impound lots, but none of them had it. One manager even laughed, saying, "Buddy, we don't tow 40-footers without police authorization." That's when my suspicion turned into dread, because if it wasn't at a lot, then where was it? That evening, my neighbor Karen came knocking, eyes wide like she had just seen a ghost. She whispered that she'd spotted my RV rolling down Main Street at midnight, headlights off, moving like it didn't want to be noticed. She thought it was me behind the wheel. When I told her it wasn't, her face went pale. Well, whoever it was, they weren't exactly camping. I saw two men in dark jackets climb out at the gas station. One of them was carrying something that looked like a gun case. I didn't want to believe her, but then I started hearing other rumors. A teenager swore he saw the RV parked near the high school football field with tinted windows glowing faint blue from the inside, like a computer lab was running in there. Another neighbor claimed a group of men were spotted unloading heavy equipment from it at dawn. Nobody could explain why, and nobody could prove it. But suddenly my eyesore had become the most talked about vehicle in town. That night, I grabbed my car keys and went searching. Sure enough, around 1 a.m., I spotted it myself, my RV, creeping slowly down a side street, way out of the neighborhood. The windows were blacked out, but I could see silhouettes moving inside. It wasn't being hauled by a tow truck. It was being driven. I followed at a distance, adrenaline pounding in my ears. Whoever was behind the wheel wasn't just taking a joyride. They moved with precision, like they knew exactly where they were going. My RV stopped briefly outside a closed office building. A door cracked open and 3 figures in tactical vests slipped inside. Then the RV rolled on, vanishing into the night. By the time I realized what I had just witnessed, my skin crawled. This wasn't vandalism. This wasn't an HOA prank. My RV had been hijacked for something bigger, something dangerous. And if what I saw was real, then the people using it weren't neighbors or petty rule enforcers. They were professionals. The following day, I decided I couldn't sit back anymore. My RV had turned into a ghost on wheels, and if I didn't get answers soon, I was afraid I'd never see it again. I started digging. First, I checked with the local police, but they brushed me off, saying there was no record of a tow or a theft report. Maybe talk to your HOA, the officer suggested with a bored tone, like I'd wasted his time. That was when I realized I was on my own. Later that afternoon, while scrolling through news alerts, I found something that made my blood run cold. A small blurb mentioned an ongoing federal investigation in my county, but no details were given. Just that federal agents were monitoring organized criminal activity. Normally, I'd scroll past that kind of vague report, but then it clicked: the equipment, the tactical vests, the strange late-night stops. This wasn't random. My RV was tied to it. The puzzle came together in pieces when I finally cornered one of the HOA patrol guys. I caught him outside the community clubhouse, sweating bullets as he puffed on a cigarette. I pressed him hard, and eventually his arrogance cracked. He admitted they hadn't towed my RV at all. Instead, they'd found it parked where it shouldn't be and decided to borrow it for a little spin to prove a point. Only, once they got inside, they discovered it wasn't an RV at all. According to him, the interior was nothing like a camper. The walls were lined with black cases full of electronics, racks of blinking servers, multiple flat-screen monitors, and radio equipment that looked straight out of a spy movie. Hidden panels revealed storage compartments stuffed with tactical gear, encrypted phones, and laptops running programs none of them could even understand. It wasn't a vehicle for weekend camping trips. It was a fully outfitted mobile FBI command unit. The idiot patrolmen thought it was cool at first, like a toy they'd stumbled onto. But the moment they realized the seriousness of what they'd touched, they panicked. The others decided to keep quiet, drive it around to have fun, and then stash it before anyone noticed. What they didn't know was that the unit had built-in tracking, and by using it, they had blown the cover off an active FBI sting operation happening in our very own neighborhood. By the time he finished his shaky confession, my stomach dropped. This wasn't just HOA nonsense anymore. The FBI was going to come looking, and when they did, they weren't going to be gentle about it. My RV wasn't just evidence, it was the heart of their mission. And the HOA had just hijacked it. The fallout hit faster than anyone in the neighborhood expected. It started with unmarked SUVs rolling through the subdivision at dawn. They weren't the kind of cars you see on a realtor's open house day. These had tinted windows, government plates, and men in suits stepping out with earpieces tucked neatly into their collars. Within minutes, the quiet streets looked like a crime scene. Agents swarmed the clubhouse, the patrol shed, and even the HOA president's pristine front lawn. Neighbors peeked out from behind blinds, whispering nervously, as if we'd all woken up in the middle of a crime thriller. The HOA patrol, the same smug guys who bragged about relocating my RV, were the first to be hauled away. I watched from my porch as they stammered excuses, waving their clipboards like shields. We didn't know. One of them shouted as he was shoved into the back of a black SUV. Another tried to argue about community bylaws, which earned him nothing but an agent's glare that could melt steel. For once, their little rulebook didn't protect them. Soon, the FBI knocked on my door. The lead agent, a stone-faced man who looked like he hadn't smiled since the Reagan administration, wasted no time. "Sir, do you own a recreational vehicle registered under your name?" he asked. When I nodded, his jaw tightened. "That vehicle is not an RV. It's federal property. It was part of an ongoing covert operation that your HOA members have severely compromised." His voice was calm, but I could feel the storm behind it. Apparently, the FBI had been using the mobile command unit to track a criminal network operating right under our noses. My HO patrol's little joyride had exposed the van's presence, forcing the suspects underground and unraveling months of work. In the Bureau's eyes, the patrol wasn't just nosy, they were obstructing justice. By nightfall, the neighborhood was in chaos. The clubhouse was taped off, the patrol team was gone, and the HOA board members were being interviewed in the back of government vehicles. Neighbors whispered that indictments were coming. Me? I just sat on my porch, sipping coffee, watching the empire of rules and fines collapse in real time. When it was over, the FBI finally returned my so-called RV, though they made it clear I'd never be allowed near the special modifications again. I didn't argue. The sight of the HOA being dismantled by federal agents was worth more than any victory I could.